So, hi, I'm Dr. Cynthia Clark, acupuncture physician, applied clinical nutritionist, and president of Longevity Wellness. And today I get the honor of interviewing David Boyette, who has recently completed Ultraman, Florida, which is one of four in the world. Um, and we're going to get to talk a little bit about his racing career and how he got into all of this and how he balances all of this with being a real person in the world.
Very good.
So, David, I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself, but I just wanted to start off by mentioning, so you've completed two half Ironmans, 13 Ironmans, and an Ultraman since 2015, but I'll bet your racing career didn't start there. I'll bet your athletic career didn't start there. What did you start off doing?
I started with just a little running. I really where it got started for me is I was officiating high school football, and I'm still a high school football ref. And I noticed that late in the games, I was getting tired, and I thought I ought to go out and get a little exercise and get in better shape. And one day I went out and I took a little jog from my house. I went maybe a quarter mile, and I turned around and walked home, muttering under my breath, how did I get this pathetic and decrepit? Which was, like 10 years ago. And then the next day, I ran that same 400 yards maybe, and I ran home instead of walking home muttering. So I was very pleased with that. And then the next day, I ran to the next mailbox, which was, 20 yards farther. And I continued to add one mailbox at a time until I had successfully run a mile, which I was very pleased with myself about. Um, and then I slowly added a little more, and I got to where I was running a couple of miles. And I also officiate high school soccer. And I told Judge Charlie Roberts, who was a high school ref at the time. I'm a lawyer, and so I know Judge Roberts, and he was doing running marathons with a group that he runs with. And I told him I'd start doing a little running. He said, "Well, you ought to come out and run with us." So I started running with them and training for a 10-mile run, and I did a half marathon with that group. We did the Army 10-miler in Washington. I didn't do a marathon with them. I did some middle distance running. And then a group of like four people from that group decided to do a sprint triathlon in Venice. And I went and did a sprint triathlon. And I realized I really liked that better than just running. I liked the fact that it worked all of your body. And it wasn't just always pounding on the run. And it gave me an excuse to like work out every day. So I did a sprint triathlon, and then eventually I did an Olympic distance triathlon. And then I tried to tackle the half Ironman, and that's when things started to get more serious.
Well, that is incredible. That is not what I thought your answer was going to be. So, were you active in high school or college? Were you an athlete then?
No, not really. I mean, I played flag football. I did a little boxing, like amateur, just working out at the boxing gym, but nothing serious. And I never really did endurance stuff, which is what now I do what I do, And I played tennis, but I was kind of your typical person. Um, and I was in terrible shape when I was 10, 15 years ago.
Like, can you tell me about that? What kind of shape were you in? It's hard to imagine. Like, you're this elite athlete now. It's just one of the most challenging races in the world. So, can I ask you, what was it like when you started?
I was a typical dad slash lawyer, typical American diet, drank beer, bad. I was just not. I was not in good shape, and I mean, I wasn't like overweight. I'm always kind of been kind of thin. But I wasn't in any way in good shape, and I really did do. I mean, I lifted weights occasionally, but and somehow I just started enjoying running, and then it just kept going. I just kept building and building. It's kind of crazy.
Well, that is really cool. Okay. So, can I ask you a little bit about your career a little bit? I understand you're a litigation lawyer,
Yep.
and I imagine that this requires excellent preparation and communication and keeping a clear head. I noticed in the bio that you sent me, it had this phrase that really called to me, and it was concise, efficient, and tenacious
Yeah.
style. And I know you specialize in business litigation. I can certainly see how concise, efficient, and tenacious would work for you in the world of business law. I'm curious how concise, efficient, and tenacious works for you in race strategy and preparation.
Well, tenacious for sure. Uh, Today you got. I'm definitely stubborn. I get a goal in mind, and it's I kind of single-minded on the attack for that, so that's easy. Efficient, I got to be efficient with my time, because my workouts are kind of a part-time job and my lawyering's a full-time job. And you need to be efficient in your in triathlon. It's all about efficiency. It's about covering the distance as quickly as you can, but and being efficient in your energy expenditure. I don't know about concise. That one doesn't fit in there, but
Well, fast times.
yeah, I suppose.
I noticed, by the way, on your first half that there were numbers for that your transition from bike to run was like 5 minutes, which
Mhm.
is like, from my perspective, is super fast. Like, even
Yeah,
right from the get-go, you were concise,
yeah.
efficient, we're getting this done. We're moving along. Um, okay, so you've talked a little bit about like what you like about triathlon, and there's this really interesting thing about endurance cardio events, especially in the recent era of ultra running getting a little bit more popular, and these long distance triathlons getting a little bit more popular. I think the average age for an ultra runner is like 43, but it's more mature than we might expect from the 20-year-old elite athlete. So I'm curious, what is it about the endurance cardio, about the long races and the really long races that called to you? Is that something you could put into words?
Boy, that's a good question.
Mm.
Um, hmm. Gosh, I hate to say I like to suffer, but um, there is something about can be kind of spiritual when you dig really deep. Um, I
Know exactly what you're talking about.
think, yeah, yeah. I mean, if you go run a 400, you'll get winded, but go out and run, 20 miles. And after, there's something about just really digging deep that I guess spiritual is the word that really comes to mind. Um, um, I mean, I know the it's an older group. A lot. Part of the answer for the older population and the endurance stuff is the younger folks don't have time. Because a lot of them are having kids. I mean, that was my thing when I had kids. My focus was work and the kids, and just got more time with now that my kids are all out of the house. That's part of it. But I do see at the Ironman races more, and even the Ultraman, I'm seeing younger people and people who bring their kids out to the events, which is good. And that's a hard question. I have to stew on that one.
Well, if something more comes in, please feel free to share it.
Yeah,
And let's just take a moment, and would you please tell us what an Ironman race is and what an Ultraman race is?
yeah. Ironman starts with a 2.4 mile swim, and you get out of the swim and get on your bike and ride 112 miles. You get off your bike and you run a marathon, which is 26.2 miles. It's a 1-day event. You get 17 hours to finish it, and there are cutoffs along the way. If you don't get to, a certain point, you don't finish the swim by a certain time, you get pulled. If you don't get to a certain point on the bike or the run, you get pulled. But I've never had a problem with the cutoffs. I'm quick enough to not have cutoff problems on the Ironman. The Ultraman, I was worried about the cutoffs because it has cutoffs too. Ultraman is a 3-day event. Day 1 starts with a 6.2 mile swim, which you get out of the swim and you go immediately onto your bike for 90 miles. And you have 12 hours to complete each day. Day 2 is 170 miles on your bike. And then day 3 is a double marathon, 52.4 mile run.
And
not for the faint of heart.
not for the faint of heart. There's so many questions. What was the terrain? So in Ironman, these competitions can be held all over the country, and the terrain depends upon the city that the competition is in. So if it's in Coeur d'Alene, it's going to be a little bit colder and hillier. If it's in Panama City, Florida, it's going to be a little bit flatter and warmer.
Yep.
What was the terrain like for Ultraman?
Ultraman was in Claremont. The swim was in a lake. The bike, so there, if people that are cyclists are probably familiar with the Claremont and Haines City area can be pretty darn hilly. So I think we had 3,000 or 4,000 feet of elevation on day 1 and 6,000-ish 6,000 feet of climbing on the bike on day 2. And the run had hills too. I don't know what it was, but I mean, it was fairly hilly. Nothing like what I experienced in Lake Placid, New York. For that Ironman was very hilly, crazy hilly. Wisconsin was very hilly. But there was some work on hills for Ultraman.
Of course, you and I live in Sarasota, Florida, where there are no hills.
Right.
So
right.
What do you do for your bike hill training? How do you prepare?
I do almost all of my bike training on a Wahoo kicker. Do you know what a Wahoo kicker is?
I'm not familiar with the kicker. So you're using an indoor trainer.
Yeah, a smart trainer. And it's the kind where you take the rear wheel off. So I put my triathlon, I ride on my triathlon bike. So I'm in the same position. My body gets used to working in that position. But you take the rear wheel off and it's a direct drive trainer. I had the cheaper kind where you put the wheel on there and it would just grind up tires and be expensive. The smart trainer where you take the wheel off is it's a much better experience, and you won't grind up tires. But I do almost all mine on one of those Wahoo kickers. I just spend so many hours on the bike. My fear is if I'm out on the roads, it's just a matter of time before something bad's going to happen. But getting to your question, what I do is on that trainer, you can simulate climbing hills. So you can push a button on your phone that tells the trainer to create the resistance like you're going up, however many degrees you want to be climbing. So I do intervals in my training of climbing, especially if if the race I'm training for has hills, I'm training on the trainer with hills, but not for the run.
Well, I was just going to ask, what do you do for the run?
Well, I have on occasion run the bridge out wherever the heck it is. We all know the bridge.
The Ringling Bridge?
That's it.
Yeah.
Yes. I have had occasion where I would go back and forth over the bridge. That'd give you some work. But typically I just don't have the time to get out there. But the hill running is a different deal. That pounding is just, you got to get used to that if you're going to be doing it.
And do you do your training primarily outside, or do you do that on a trainer also?
The running is all outside.
Do all your running outside? Okay.
Yep.
All right, cool. Okay, so a little bit more technical question about Ultraman. So the competitors in Ultraman ranged from ages 23 to 67. And there were 45 competitors overall, and there were 10 gentlemen that were aged 50 to 59. And you like knocked this out of the park. You came in 17th, placing at 30 hours and 47 minutes for all 3 days for all of that. And
Yeah.
just to reiterate, for those of you that are familiar with these kinds of events, some of them are nonstop and you don't get to sleep in between, but you took it easy and you got to eat and sleep in between.
Yeah, I took it easy.
Yeah.
Right.
Um, and I'm curious about your thoughts on, in recent years, we have these incredible stories. Like I love these stories of people um, far more advanced in years than yourself, but there's a gentleman, George Etzweiler, who's 99 years old, who is still leading a relay race up Mount Washington, a 50-mile relay race. Um,
Mm,
and just a few months ago, there were 4 80-year-olds that completed a 100-mile race, and their buddy, who was 96, completed 93 miles of the same race. So I'm curious
mm.
if you have a thought on why people work through the challenges of aging to achieve the impossible. Even at 60, you have a different physiology than somebody at 20 does. Why do people work through the things that come up in aging in order to keep going with these like really massive goals? Or why do you?
Um, well, I think part of it is just a zeal for life and fighting age. We will all succumb to Father Time, and we will all ultimately succumb. Where none of us gets out of here alive. Um, but as long, the way I think of it is, as long as I'm going to have this body, or put it this way, when I leave this world, I want this body to be like a car that's got the wheels coming off. I want to like I want to get every bit of juice squeezed out of this lemon that's possible. I'm not gonna leave here when I didn't give it my all. I really enjoy um, getting after it, and I don't want to. I think, but I feel younger. The hard question is that you get is why do you do this? I tell people I did an Ultraman, and they find out what it is, and they go, "Why would you do that?" It's kind of an accusatory question, like, "Are you insane? Are you crazy? Why would you put yourself through that?" And it's such a hard question. Um, and there's lots of answers for it, but I know one of the primary answers is I'm a better person when I'm working out. When I'm working out every day, I feel better physically, mentally, emotionally. One of the phrases that I've heard from Rich Roll, who is kind of my inspiration for Ultraman, is mood follows action.
Mm.
And what he means by that is, if you wake up in the morning and you're going, oh, I don't feel like working out. You're not in the mood. You're not motivated. Yeah, well, that's typical. But get out there and do something anyhow, and then your mood will be okay afterwards. You never regret a swim, bike, or run or whatever you do. You mean you? I get to the pool some mornings and I'm just like, oh, this is stupid. I literally say to myself, is like I'm going to get in that cold water and swim for an hour. This is stupid. But when I get out of the water, I feel great. It's like that was the best part of my day. Now I'll go to the office. Um, so I don't know. Kind of a rambling answer.
I love that answer. I love it can be the hardest thing to do some days. And then as soon as it's complete, it's like, that was the best part of the day. That was the one part of the day that I got to do for me. Everything else,
Yeah,
is often for other people. So I love that answer.
yeah. And if people look at me and say, "Why would you do that?" Well, I don't know. Maybe they should give it a try. They might enjoy it if they got after it some too. I don't know. Maybe they wouldn't. That's up to them. I do know this. it feels pretty good knowing that I am in way better shape than my children who are decades younger than me. Doesn't hurt my feelings at all that I could kick all their butts. Name the race. You want to do a 500-yard race or a 20-mile race? I'll kick your butt anyway. And I'm almost 60. That doesn't feel bad.
I'm going to ask you more questions about that in just a moment because I'm really curious
Okay.
about that. But I'm just wondering, have you had any like physical challenges that you've worked through during your race time?
Um,
Any health issues or
I
musculoskeletal things or?
I had a oh boy. Uh, I had a running problem, and I saw a chiropractor and a physio for like a year to get that sorted out. That was early when I first kind of started, and I think it was like I forget what it was. It was some kind of running thing. It wasn't shin splints, but it was on the other side of my shin, and I kind of worked through that. I had something go with my like IT band at one point where it was really tender, and that took a while to work through. One of the things that you get when you do a lot of is we have the word niggle, which is like it's a little niggling pain. It's bugging me, and there's a very fine line between a niggle that is going to go away and one that's going to turn into an injury. And one of the phrases I've heard is when you're having pain during your workouts, you better listen to that little bark before, because it's going to bite you if you don't listen. and and it's a very fine line knowing when you need to shut it down and when pushing through it is going to turn into an injury. So I've had probably 3 instances where the niggle turned into an injury because I didn't know to shut down my workout and give my body more recovery. And I have learned, I've gotten really good at knowing how far I can push before I get injured and when to back off. And I've done so much that my body is kind of trained in what I do. It's gotten really durable, and that takes years to get durable and to build durability and to learn when to shut things down. So I've had kind of your typical kind of running injuries. I also had prostate cancer twice during my career, which that was several surgeries and not fun, but I got through that too.
Wow.
Yeah,
What incredible perseverance. Do you think that the workouts helped you with the like mentally the aspect of getting through prostate cancer?
absolutely, absolutely. Because the cancer was scary, was very scary, and gave me something to focus on. Um, and there were aspects of it that were painful and really not fun. And you know, I could face some of these procedures, and it's like I got in the water in Wisconsin and it was like 52, 50, whatever degrees. I can do this, If I can do that, I can do that, I can do this attitude. And I just got through it. I didn't have to have chemo or anything. But I did have to have surgery a couple of times.
Yeah, I really feel you on the how endurance cardio training, by the process of seeking adversity, we build that durability and we build that resilience and we build that internal testimony that we're strong and we can do this, even if it's something we've never faced before. I
Right.
really, I really respect and admire that.
Yeah. And you spread it to your friends and family, because I've seen my friends and family have to deal with shit, and then they'll say, I thought of you. If you could do that, then I can do this. I've had that
Wow,
experience many times.
what a beautiful gift.
Hmm. Yeah,
Um,
that's a motivator too.
and I noticed on your Ultraman crew that your crew all had your last name.
No, not all.
Oh, not
Not
all.
all.
One didn't, but the others did.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
Well, I have my sister and my wife and my brother-in-law. And my
and
brother-in-law has done 2 Ironman races with me.
oh, how cool.
Yeah, he's a great guy. And my son came out. That's another Boyette. Yeah, so
Oh,
my son came out during the run. He came out the 3rd day and he ran with me for like 5 miles. Um, Yeah, that was great. And he crossed the finish line with me. And my
Oh,
brother-in-law ran like 12 miles on and off with me. Um, oh, that was amazing. I mean, if anybody is doing this kind of stuff and you've got you're done Ironman, but you don't know if you're doing Ultraman. Ultraman's a different deal, and it is really special to because it's a team effort. You know, Ironman, I leave in the morning, I kiss my wife goodbye, and I might see her twice, and then I'll see her 14 hours later or whatever. Ultraman, I'm seeing them all day long, and they're part of the team. You know, they're helping me along the way. It was really really cool that way.
so that's what I wanted to ask you about. So, in general, endurance cardio events are pretty solitary. They're renowned as being one of the worst spectator sports
Absolutely
because
terrible.
you see your loved one when they go out. They're going on a swim. You can't tell them apart from everybody
Right,
else. You're
right.
then they go on a bike ride and like I have tried to hunt people down on a Ironman bike and it
Yeah.
is really challenging because of all the
Yes.
traffic that's blocked off and everything. And then you
Yeah.
see them on the run and if it's a twice out and back, then you're going to see them like twice,
Right.
right? Um,
Right.
and so I'm curious about you must have a beautiful family cohesion. You must have a beautiful ability to build team in an environment where where like everything you've done to this point is so much solo. So I just
Mhm.
wanted to ask if you had any advice or just anything you'd like to share about that process because it's such a beautiful thing to witness.
Um, I've heard on things I've encountered that they say, don't get family on your crew for your 100-mile run or your Ultraman. And I have a friend who did a 50 miler or a 100 miler or something, and his wife was his crew, and he said it was a disaster. So, there some people have bad experience. I've also heard that some people who are doing the event, um, like when you get really deep in the hurt locker, some people get not nice. That never happened to me.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
no, I did not. I was just full of joy the whole time. Um, um, so that's a tip I've heard from others, but that I mine was all family, and we got along great. I mean, I guess if I mean one thing I would say is if you one thing that's important if you're doing something like this, whether it's a 100-mile race or an Ultraman, if you can get somebody who has experience in endurance, that's critical. And it may not be, maybe they've done a 100-miler and you're doing it may not be the same thing, but just somebody that knows what it's like and what you're going through, because that's critical. um, um, but nice people are good. People who have good attitudes, who are patient and are nice, that's a good thing, and are selfless. Which, by the way, that's the kind of people that gravitate towards this. I mean, I was absolutely amazed at Ultraman because you had 47 athletes, I think it was, and everybody had a crew of approximately three. Some had five, some had two, but probably three-ish. So you've got 150 people there who are acting as crew, and they were all of them absolutely completely selfless. I mean, who gives up 3 days of their life to just go somewhere and be 100% servant for this person for 3 days? That's all they did. I mean, that's pretty amazing. Not everybody does that. And some of the people that were working crew just volunteered. Like I ran 20 my first 20 miles on the run were with a woman from Oregon who was there with her husband, and there was a girl from Anna Maria Island who volunteered to be on her crew. She just volunteered, and she spent 3 days, and we're doing this run, and every couple of miles this her crew member who she'd never met before, what do you need? She's giving her ice. She's giving her drink. I mean, she just tell her what she wants. She's just like her slave. I mean, it's unbelievable. And you got 150 people doing that. I mean, it's really quite a community that does Ultraman.
Wow, that is so beautiful. I'm hoping to get to crew at Ultraman next year. So I love
Are
hearing these
you?
stories.
Well, so you know what I'm talking about. You're going to go volunteer unless you find somebody that you know that's going to do it.
Oh yeah. Oh, that would be even better.
Yeah. Well, I might do it again. I'm toying with it, so I'll let you know.
Okay, well that's one of my other questions for you.
I I, I was I found out after the fact that I was 16 minutes short of the course record for my age group. So I'm thinking
You got goals.
I can get 16 minutes out of this thing.
Okay, let's talk prep logistics for just a second. So how much time a week do you spend training for Ironman versus Ultraman?
Okay. Um, I'll just tell you this is my Ironman regiment. Um, I'll tell you what I do, but I'm going to tell you. I will also give you the caveat that everybody. You're kind of N of one.
Yeah,
Everybody can do it their own way. My
I love that
brother-in-law,
expression, N of one.
yeah, my brother-in-law did TriDot, and he's a big believer in that. And have you heard of TriDot?
Mm-mm.
Well, it's a computer program, and they have coaches. You can have a coach, or you can just go on their online system and it'll spit out a training plan. It's not that expensive, and it'll tell you what to do and what paces to run, and it'll get you ready for an Ironman or a half Ironman. And it also has a run component too if you're just doing running.
I'll bet they don't
um,
have an Ultraman one though.
no, they don't. There's not
I've
a lot
been
of guidance on Ultraman training.
I've been researching that.
There's very little guidance on Ultraman. I couldn't find any guidance on it.
Yeah.
I had to make it up. But TriDot, just for example, they do a lot more intensity and less volume than I do, and I had a coach for a while who kind of helped me dial in how I do my training.
You're an
Um,
80/20 guy, I take it.
Pardon?
Are you an 80/20 guy?
Yeah, roughly. I am. I don't. I'm not a. I don't like do the math, but I bet you I fall pretty close to that. Um, and I do try to kind of build base as I'm early in leading up, and then I get a little. I work the intensity and work the intensity up a month or so out. But what I typically do is Monday, Wednesday, Friday I swim. Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, Sunday, I run and bike. And I do 3 weeks of build, 1 week of recovery, and then 3 weeks. I do 4 week blocks, 3 weeks build, 1 week recovery. And my swims, I have different things that I do. Like the Monday is usually long endurance. I'll do long sets. Wednesday,
What
I'll
is your long
do.
endurance? What do you mean when you say long endurance?
Mm, um, so
For Ironman and Ultraman.
for Ironman, my long Monday swim is usually 2 hours, probably, which is probably 5 or 6,000 yards, and it's probably going to be like a 500 yard to warm up, and then I'll probably do. I would probably do like a 500 warm up, and then I might do 1,000, a 900, an 800, a 700, a 600, something like that. Or I might do, depends, I might do a 500 to warm up, like a little warm up, and then go into a 1,500, 1,000, a 1,500. A 1,500 is like 30 minutes. I do fairly long intervals, not crazy. When I was doing my Ultraman training, um, I did multiple swims that were 10,000 yards that took almost 4 hours. And I was eating and drinking. I never eat during the swim or drink for an Ironman or in the training. But in the Ultraman, you eat and drink during the swim because it's so freaking long. And you got to get the calories in for day one to get you ready. You got to keep the calories going because when you get into day two, you don't want to be in any more deficit than you have to be. So it's, but But for the Ultraman, I was doing 500 by 1500 sets. No, 500 and 1,000. I would do 500, 1,000, 500, 1,000, and like until I got to my distance. So those are like 10-minute by 30-minute, or 10-minute and 20-minute, and then I drink and eat in between. With short breaks, real short breaks, 10 seconds, 500, 10 seconds, get a drink, back for another 1,000. So it's pretty long. And then I was usually doing the Wednesday swim. Instead of long stuff, I would do more intensity stuff. So it would be like a 400 at 80% effort, and then a 300 at 90% effort, a 200 at 95% effort, and do sets with some intensity at like half the workout. And then Friday is usually I do swim buoy and paddles, kind of a more build musculature, strength kind of stuff is the way I think of it. And they're always, I kind of build the volume as I go. And I usually would build up to about maybe close to 2 hours. I do an Ironman swim in about an hour 15, hour 20. So I'm doing a good bit more than the race. I'm doing 4 miles instead of 2.4. So when I get to the race and I'm doing a 2.4, that doesn't feel like that big a deal, And you can do a lot of volume in the pool without hurting yourself. You can hurt yourself too. People get shoulder injuries, but if you can build the durability, and then you can do a lot more volume. And then on the bike and the run, I do the same thing every Tuesday, Thursday. I do 2 hours on the bike with hill intervals, which is usually like a 10-minute climb, then 3 minutes, catch my breath, 10-minute climb, 3 minutes, I do 3 hill intervals at 10 minutes each during a 2-hour bike. And then I do a 1-hour run with 30 minutes of intervals, running, faster than my normal endurance pace. And then I do like a 7-minute interval, a 6-minute interval, a 4-minute, and a 3-minute, I think, to get like 30 minutes of intervals in that 1 hour. And then Saturday is a long bike and a short run, and Sunday is a short bike and a long run. And the long bike will go anywhere from, will slowly build, because the 2-hour bike during the week, it'll start there and it'll build to usually like 7 hours as the long bike. I'll probably go to 8. Now I'm training for Ironman California right now. I haven't really started yet. I'm still kind of taking a break from Ultraman, but I'm about to start up. So I'll probably go to like 8 as my long bike. And then the run off that bike is always like a half hour, might build to 40 or 50 minutes. And that's just because I have a philosophy that I want my legs to know when you get off the bike, it is time to run. It's like, they just know. It's like, there's no complaining. We know, we run after the bike, period. It's like, it's just an automatic. So it's just a short run. And then Sunday I do an hour on the bike, easy. Like I drop the resistance and just kind of spin for an hour, just kind of loosen up and warm up. And then I do a long run. And then the long run for an Ironman, usually the longest I would go in an Ironman long run is like 3.5 hours, which for me is like 24 miles, maybe, depends. I usually do not get to a marathon in an Ironman training. And then the long, I will cover the 112. I'll usually get up to 120 on the bike, on my longest bike in an Ironman training. So I do that. Now in the Ultraman, you want to hear about that too?
Yeah.
Okay. This is my, I live to talk about it. I love to talk about this stuff. Nobody wants to hear about this stuff. So this is just a treat for me to be able to talk about it.
Well, this is awesome. I'm drinking it in.
Okay. For the Ultraman, um, I didn't increase the total number of hours by a lot. I mean, I did increase it some. I probably did increase it a fair amount. What I did in the Ultraman was I still did my long swim on Monday. What I do is I did Friday, I would do a very long swim. I started trying to really ramp up my, and then my Wednesday, my Monday and Wednesday swim, less intensity, and I was doing probably a longer. I was probably doing like 2-hour swims, and then Friday I was trying to just get used to going really long. So I was really adding the time. But my Tuesday bike run, I'd make it a recovery day, because the weekends I had added so much distance on the weekends that my legs they just weren't used to that much. And they just needed more recovery time. So I would dial down either Tuesday or Thursday. I can't even remember which one I dialed down, but one of them, I think it was Tuesday. I would make it like an hour easy on the bike, and a super easy on the bike for an hour, super easy, barely jogging shakeout run of half an hour. And it just built a recovery day into the week that I didn't normally have. But then my Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I just went longer, crazy longer. Like my swim stretched into almost 4 hours. My bike, I think my longest bike was 10 hours. And my longest run, I think, was 6 hours, which was, I think the farthest I went on the run in training was 35 miles.
Yeah, I was gonna say 6 hours is would be a bit south of your accomplishment on day
I
3.
know, I know, I know, I know.
But
I didn't know quite what I was going to do. I mean, I had Ironman Arizona just a couple months before Ultraman. If I didn't have that on the calendar, I might have built more. There was a young lady in the race who I ran with for a little while, but I couldn't keep up with her. She did 2 50-mile runs in training, which I was very impressed with. uh,
very cool. It sure takes a lot to build that in. I was reading James Lawrence's book, Iron Cowboy,
yep.
and his trainer talks about when he was training for the first 50 Ironmans that he did. So he did 50 Ironmans in 50 states in 50 days. And his trainer was saying, you can't train somebody to do 50.
Right.
You have to train them to do the first 10 days. And then those first 10 days are the training for what becomes the rest of it. So it's kind of like, the first 10 are going to be awful.
Right.
And then you just power through it. And then it got a lot easier. And I'm kind of hearing bits of that in your Ultraman training. Is it's like you can't run an Ultraman. You can't do an Ultraman to train for an Ultraman.
Well, and that's interesting, because that's something my wife would say to me. Like when I'm training for an Ironman, I kind of do an Ironman on the weekend. Between the 3 days, I covered all 3 distances. I never did that with an Ultraman, although I did do the swim distance and the bike pretty close to the bike distance. But the run is where you're at most risk for an injury. And you probably know this. The DNS is a terrible thing. And if anybody's listening to this someday, DNS means did not start. And you can hurt yourself by pushing it too much, or you can get sick. And that's just doing too much. And the running is where you're most risk of hurting yourself. So that's where I just didn't want to push it too much. And my goal was finish. When I started thinking about Ultraman, it was very intimidating. It was scary. I was like, I don't know if I can do that. I mean, I've done 13 Ironman. I'm not like a rookie at this stuff, but it scared me, and I'm 59, so, um, and I kind of think, well, maybe I could swim that far and maybe I could bike, maybe I could do a double marathon, but I didn't know. Um, and I kind of figured if I can get to the third day and make the cutoffs of day 1 and day 2, I can run a good enough pace for like 30 miles that if I have to walk the last 20, I'll still make the cutoff. I was like, I can walk it in I'll still make it. And even though there's not a question, I got to tell you, um, I was absolutely blown away with what happened at Ultraman because I ran all 50 miles. I mean, I walked the hills because I knew the pounding on my legs would get me. But a lot of people on that double marathon, I mean, I heard from a lot of people that they just came apart at the seams at mile 30 or mile 40, or mile 45, and they couldn't run the whole thing. And the miles kept piling up, and I just felt okay.
What do you attribute that to?
uh, years, 10 years of doing this, and pacing it right. Because I'm a big heart rate. I track my heart rate in my training, and I've gotten my zones what they should be. We know what your lactate threshold zone is, and your functional threshold power zone is. So I know. I mean, I've kind of learned where I go too much and I'm going to blow up. So for Ironman, I'm usually on the run on an Ironman. I like to keep my heart rate under 140. I really like it around 130 or 135 because I know I can run a marathon, after the swim and the bike, and that heart rate, and I'm going to get through it. For this, I dialed my heart rate down, and it took my pace down. But it felt like I could just go all day at that pace because my heart rate was, I forget what the average was, but it was typically about a buck 20.
Yeah.
And I was running about a 10-minute mile pace. And so it was the pacing, the nutrition, and the weather, the temperature wasn't bad. So, and just a lot of experience.
That is the saving grace, right? Like that's the one thing that you cannot control on race day, and it has
Yeah,
so
yeah.
much to do with the outcome and even the ability to finish.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Well, if you're going to do this stuff, you got to know going in, anything can happen. It might be super cold. It might be super hot. It might just quickly. I had in Ironman Chattanooga, I spent 5 hours on the bike in the rain, cold rain, wasn't dressed properly. That can happen to you. Ironman Coeur d'Alene, record heat wave.
Oh,
It was a little over 100 degrees
oh my
on
God.
the bike. The temperature of they had us out on a highway for like a 40-mile stretch. The temperature at the road surface was 130 degrees,
Oh
and it was
my
over
God.
100 degrees. There were people down like all over the place. I mean, you do some of this stuff. I mean, you could anything. You gotta be ready for anything, and just be ready, be expecting it. Don't be surprised.
Yeah, but still, Coeur d'Alene is known for being a chilly race, a cool race.
We had a heat wave.
Wow.
Yeah, that's another thing you learn in these things is this took me a long time to learn, is you gotta keep your core temperature in check, because as the hours go by, your temperature in your body just ratchets up, and your body really fights to maintain your core temperature in a certain range. I'm not an expert on this stuff.
Yeah.
But it really wants to keep your core temperature in a certain range. And if you start going above that, it gets very unhappy. And the longer you work out, the more temperature you're creating. Um, and like at Coeur d'Alene, I really learned the about that. I've learned that in other races too. But if you get heat, ice in your when I was in Coeur d'Alene, every aid station I lift open the jersey, say dump in the ice. And they just dump in the ice, and it would melt down my legs as I rode. And then on the run, ice on I had a sock, big long sock filled with ice. Just had ice on my shoulder the whole time, just dripping, and in my hat, and yeah.
Brilliant.
Yes.
What's been
You
your
learn
favorite
tricks.
race so far?
Ultraman was amazing. Ultraman was absolutely amazing experience. I don't know that I can't, but that's a lifetime achievement for me. I mean, I don't know that it'll ever get better than that. I really enjoyed my first Ironman in Chattanooga. Chattanooga is a wonderful race, wonderful course. I got to the finish line at Ironman Chattanooga, and I had so many I had DNSs and DNFs because I had just struggling to before that race to with getting my nutrition dialed in and getting. I got to the finish line and I just sat down and cried, and I thought to myself, you know, grown men don't just have tears of joy. You don't get that experience, and I had the same thing at Ultraman, so Ultraman and the first Ironman were two big ones. They brought me to tears. Yeah.
And that's a worthy pursuit in and of itself. Why do you do this? Because tears of joy.
Yeah. When do you get that?
Exactly. That's major, powerful, motivating lifetime.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else that you want to share about things that you've learned or?
Well, yeah. One thing I would share is I have learned that the importance of sleep and diet. I have become a big believer that there are three things that are critical in the human experience. And one is your sleep, absolutely critical. It will mess with your life if you don't sleep. And that means good sleep hygiene, and that means get to sleep at the consistent hour. I get 9 hours in my bed every night, because, and I know others may get along. If you're a 7 hour, good for you, but learn what you need, make the time, get to bed consistently, make it a dark room, do these things so you get good sleep. Critical. Nutrition is critical. I'm vegan. I'm not going to preach that. That's kind of an N of one. Do what works for you. And there's lots of different kinds of diets out there, but I think all the diets agree, avoid all the crap that's out there. The fast food, and there's the sugary fried stuff. I mean, we know what, if you eat it and it makes you feel like crap, that tells you something, you know? So I'm a big believer in sleep and diet and exercise. You do those three things right, your life is going to be better. And the comment I have about exercise is, and I've heard this from a lot of sources, there's a lot of scientific information out there, is it doesn't take a lot to get tremendous physical and mental benefit. You don't have to go do crazy endurance stuff. If you can get, I think, like 30 minutes to an hour, like 3 times a week of just getting your heart rate up, tremendous benefits. So I definitely would like to share that.
Those are wonderful messages to share. I have one final question for you.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned on your Ultraman intake forms, one of the fun things that they ask people about is their favorite movies. And you listed Star Trek. So I'm curious, is it original or Next Generation that's your favorite?
Oh gosh. I like the new one with
Patrick Stewart.
the recent one. Yeah. I like the recent one. I don't even know what to say about that.
Well, I grew up watching Star Trek with my dad, so
Ah,
on Saturday nights that was our date time together. So,
oh,
um,
awesome.
and and their morality plays. There's so much goodness that you carry forward
Mhm.
that I can see in your own personal prime directive of
Yeah.
even in saying your personal dietary lifestyle, you kind of have a non-interference philosophy on that. Like, I'm not
Yeah.
trying to tell anybody else how to eat, but this is what works for me. Um,
Yeah.
so awesome. Well, David, thank you so much for your time. It's such a pleasure and such an honor. I know the time is very precious. One of the things that Ironman training has truly taught me, in addition to, wow, not only do I have to spend all this time training and cooking a whole bunch of food and eating it, but also sleeping more, is
Hmm.
is the preciousness of time. And I am very, very, very grateful for your time today. I know that all of the people that watch this, that their lives will be touched. And thank you so much for sharing your great energy with us all.
Yeah.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Well, thank you. This was a lot of fun.
Awesome. So I hope you have a wonderful day, and I look forward to seeing you on the racetrack.
I hope I see you somewhere, if not the pool, somewhere else.
Awesome.
Okay, bye.
Bye.